Today, I want to talk to you about the life-changing experience that we can have of processing through traumatic pain, and a big part of it being having an effective conversation. One of the most important and healthy practices in life for mental, emotional, relationship health, but also for trauma healing, but for many aspects of our journey, is the ability to have a fruitful and helpful conversation, to talk it out with someone who is loving, understanding, and empowering as a listener. So with that in mind, that's what we're going to get into. So welcome to the Healing and Freedom Journey. Mark DeJesus here. I am your brother from another mother, bringing you insights along the way. I'm all about mental, emotional, and relationship health. And if you are too, you have arrived at a great place. As I mentioned, I'm going to talk about the power of talking it out and its relation to trauma healing. But this also applies to all mental, emotional, and relationship health. So I've been in a series, a next level series on the subject of trauma and the trauma healing journey of getting into trauma healing tools. I first talked about the aspect of total unconditional loving acceptance and the importance of that. Second, I talked about the power of stillness and the amazing properties that that can have as a practice in our life and in our healing journey. Today, what I want to get into is something simple, and it gets overlooked, is the power of an effective conversation, an interaction where we're able to talk things out and experience nurture, experience comfort, experience renewal for our life. And this can happen in a number of different ways. I want to get into some of the hangups and difficulties, but let me first start off with understanding that what I'm talking about here is two important skills that we all need to develop. This isn't just mental health, this is life. One is the ability to talk out what you're going through effectively, to be able to share it, to share your feelings, to share your emotions, to share your interpretations. We were made to do this as human beings. Second is the ability for the other person to listen effectively and respond in a helpful manner. And of course, we want to both be able to talk well and both be able to listen well. And hopefully this experience can become a pitch and catch kind of cycle that can be helpful and fruitful. So in looking at this subject, what I want to do is I want to open us up to the spectrum of helpful conversations. Because when we talk about trauma healing and we talk about talking it out, our minds automatically go to a professional setting, right? A therapist, a counselor, or a coach, a specialist, right? And yes, these are places where the goal there is to sit down and not just talk about the weather, the news, or whatever social media trends are going on, or just a lot of small talk, but to get into matters of your thoughts, your emotions, and your relationship, hopefully matters of the heart. These professional settings are important and very needed, but I want to open up our lens for all of us to have an appreciation for all our relationship interactions, both professional, both personal, and the day-to-day interactions, that within it, God can weave in powerful moments and opportunities for us to be seen and heard, and also for others to be seen and heard for an interaction, even a simple interaction of kindness that can have a positive impact on your life. So when I think back to my own journey and I look at moments that were very, very meaningful, I can reflect on relationship interactions, powerful conversations and interactions that had life-changing impact. They may not have been these big, huge moments. In fact, some of them have been very simple moments. There have been some big moments, so to speak, but sometimes the most simplest of interactions have been the most meaningful to my overall healing and freedom journey. For example, I remember moments where somebody just simply prayed with me, and their thoughtful prayer hit my heart in dynamic ways. I remember conversations where just in talking to somebody, a sentence somebody said illuminated my heart to something I needed to see and understand. I've also seen where in me just talking to somebody, they picked up on a phrase I said and they walked away. We may have talked for 30 minutes or longer, but one sentence I said stuck with them. I remember many times where somebody just listened to me and just nodded and understood. Maybe put some perspective on what I was going through. It wasn't anything about fixing what I was battling or struggling with. It was more about understanding, about walking alongside and seeing it and being someone that I could express further into the journey and battle because there was a sense of understanding. I even remember times where the conversation that I had, I was resistant and stubborn to what was being shared with me. Yeah, we all have those. Yeah, but the resistance, the pushback, right? Because we have ditches that we fall into and what we believe and how we go about life. But I found what they said to be true and helpful as I let down my guard, let down my defensiveness, and let truth impact my life. What a value it was. I remember times, even one in particular, where I was sitting down with a therapist and sharing some very difficult church experiences that I had. And as I began to share over time, he looked at me and said, "You've had some PTSD in ministry, haven't you?" And when he said that phrase, it just gave me a sense of putting things in perspective. I began to weep and cry because I had a collision moment of just kind of putting a bunch of things in perspective that I had been through. But I also want to let you know, too, there have been these little moments where a little quick moment, because you can have these divine interruptions or these divine moments from just a small interaction. I remember over 20 years ago when, it would be over 20 years ago. I was working on staff at a church, and I was in a place where I'd been prayerfully thinking about it was time for me to move on in my journey. It was time for me to leave the church and move on in my pursuit. I wanted to move more into teaching healing and freedom and helping others to experience that in their life and their journey. I hadn't really mentioned it and talked about it, so no one really knew. I was still kind of putting the pieces together. Melissa and I were in the engagement stage, and we were talking about what the next stage could look like once we got married. Well, there was this woman who barely spoke English. She was Spanish, and I would see her every Sunday. She loved how I led worship, and she would just give me a thumbs up or say something encouraging in very broken English. We didn't have a whole lot of interactions, but she was just very kind to me. And I look back, and I always appreciate when people were just simple in their kindness, because it means a lot to those of us that are navigating a lot of things. And I like to have the mindset of everybody's struggling. So try to maintain that sense of kindness because everyone's in a battle with something, right? Anyway, I remember a profound day where I was getting up to go on stage to lead the worship time of the church service. And she pulled me aside, very short lady, so I had to lean down to listen to her. And she pulled me by my sleeve and she pointed at me, and not knowing anything about me or anything I was thinking about, she looked at me and she says in her broken English, "Juno stay. Jugo." Moments like that where it's like, wow, that's interesting. I mean, I'd just been thinking and praying about it. Hadn't really talked it out with anyone. And it gave an encouraging word to my heart that taking a step here, it gave me, not that I was relying on that to take the step, but it was a word of encouragement. And many times a simple word of encouragement can be so valuable. In fact, this past Sunday, I gave in our Sunday Live a survey and gave a couple options for people to choose from. What's the best way that you feel loved? Is it encouragement? Is it somebody listening to you? Is it a hug, or is it a gift? And by far, the majority of the answers that were given, number one was a word of encouragement. You see, this isn't about just having a nice conversation. Our hearts are crying out for encouragement. We're really needing that. And so within the healing journey, we have to recognize, don't diminish the power of being encouraged, the power of having a fruitful conversation, both in a casual setting and also in a professional setting, but open yourself up to the whole spectrum of what could happen and the healing that can take place through fruitful interactions. Now, I got to recognize something. And that is, so many of us have had painful conversations and interactions. And just as a good conversation, a fruitful one, can build us up, these painful conversations and interactions can tear us down, where even trauma can get embedded in our life. Many of you in your journey, you have the echo of somebody's words that took place decades ago, still echoing in your head and in your heart. And you're filled with shame and even self-hatred and self-rejection and anxiousness because of it. It had a detrimental effect. It's because God designed words to be incredibly powerful. He designed human interaction to be the way that we learn about his nature, that as we love one another, we would learn more about his love. But our emotional life can be deteriorated simply through a painful, unloving, or abusive interaction or conversation. So talking things out is a need that we have, but we have to understand that all of us, to some extent or another, we have baggage when it comes to conversations, don't we? And so here's something that I just want to bring out as a highlight to this talk, is that the importance of conversation and talking it out. Until we get a chance to talk it out, much of our traumatic pain can remain pent up in our bodies, unprocessed and unhealed. So talking about our experiences productively isn't just helpful. It's actually part of the experience itself. It's part of the whole journey. And for many of you, your trauma healing journey is going to be something you're going to use to bless others. It's going to be something redemptive to encourage, to empower other people. Yeah, your story can be healing. And if you'll give yourself the room to learn how to talk it out effectively, then you can talk to others and help them talk it out and be an encouraging and helpful vessel. So I'm going to get into some reasons and understanding why we need to talk it out. The first being, we're relational beings made to connect. And communication helps us to connect to what we are feeling and allows us to work through our emotions. And a lot of what I teach on a mental, emotional relationship health, there's a lot of through that I use. A lot of the word journey, and a lot of times I use the word through, because it's about working through our battles, not just trying to get away from them, escape them, or get quickly rescued from them. And we do this relationally. Now, for many of you, you have a love language of words of affirmation. It's a special pathway for you that adds an extra sense of feeling loved. This is also something that you're going to need to keep in mind, because those who, they appreciate words of affirmation, they often have a need to talk and share and hear encouragement back. But this isn't just for them. It's for all of us. The second thing I want to bring out is that there's tremendous power in feeling seen, loved, heard, and validated. Some of the great breakthroughs that I've had with people in helping their journey was simply being a good listener and validating back, like having a sense of just mirroring back to them an understanding of what they went through, understanding the difficulties and how it influenced many battles that they face. This is so important. It cannot be overlooked. Many times, just by being a validating listener, it's helped bring a breakthrough into someone's journey, simply by doing that. It's amazing, isn't it? Also, there can be a incompleteness of unprocessed experiences without talking about it. It's kind of like there's a layer of talking out that gives it the processing through us. And so that's why I say until we've talked it out, we've not fully experienced through the trauma. Now, I know many compulsives out there can get out of hand with this. They can overtalk and they can even chase this completeness kind of feeling or this fully being understood kind of feeling. But it doesn't negate the need that we have to talk about trauma productively as a part of the full experience. Okay. So another aspect of this is unprocessed trauma can remain stored up in our physical bodies. And this is a concept I'm going to get into when I talk about somatic and aspects of your physiology that you need to understand in the processing through of pain, because talking about it can give it a voice in a helpful way. And it gives a beginning of the releasing of pain, because you can begin to voice it, name it, and allow it to now have a pathway of release out of your body. It's not the only thing. Conversation isn't the only thing, but I want to input this in as a major important aspect. Number 5, a powerful conversation can be just incredibly healing experiences. And we live in a day and age where we're so busy, we have so much going on, but yet when people pause long enough to have a meaningful interaction, I've even seen where just at a social gathering, a meaningful interaction can have such a deep impact on somebody's life. And we live in a world where people say, well, our attention spans are shorter. And I get it. It's true. But at the same time, there's another phenomenon going on, is that people will listen to long podcasts that are 2 or 3 hours long. And many times those podcasts are 2 people having a conversation and you're listening into it. So don't diminish your short attention span as, well, I can't have conversations because I can't, I have ADHD or I have short attention span. Sure, that's all, I get it and I understand it, but don't let it limit the power of when you get into the flow of a fruitful conversation, the beauty that can happen there. And so number 6 is powerful therapeutic and healing experiences involve powerful conversations. So anytime you go to a therapist or a coach or counselor, some kind of professional, and you say, oh, there was some help I got there, it's because there was a fruitful interaction, a conversation took place, okay? Now, the difference, what's the difference between having a good conversation with a friend, having a good conversation with a trained person? Well, with a trained person, they should be able to help you process through painful emotions of trauma. Process through. Okay, and I'll get into that in just a moment because I want to talk to you about what's the difference between healthy processing and unhealthy patterns. Let me lay out for you what some healthy processing can look like. These are very simple things, but you can get started with this on your own. But if you're with somebody who's trained, it can help you walk through it. First of all is safe sharing, where you're safe to be vulnerable and able to share what you're battling, what you're going through without condemnation, without instant judgment, without some kind of quick fix response where someone's listening. And number 2, you feel understood in your experience. That sets the stage. And if you're going to see a therapist, give them a chance to get you. In fact, with people I've met, I've even told them, I said, I feel like I hit a place here where I get you and I get your battle. I say that to them to say, man, I feel it. I feel like I connect to it in a meaningful way, right? And it doesn't mean that your therapist needs to tell you that, but it's just a sense of give it time for them to get what you're going through and get what you're battling. Okay, then the practical application of this is being able to name emotions. And usually there's a question here of how does this make you feel? And this is a common thing that professionals, trained people will ask. And there's like a cultural making fun of them. You see it in movies. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel? And what about Bob? You kind of see this somewhat sterile, that movie, you see somewhat sterile response by the therapist. How does that make you feel? And how does that make you feel? But there is something very powerful of putting back to you the work of naming an emotion. Because when you can name it now you can begin to work through how it influences you. So number 4 here is interpretation. What does this emotion mean? So if you say something like, I'm very disturbed, or I'm filled with a lot of resentment, I have a lot of disappointment. Okay, well, what does that mean? And this is where many people get tripped up. OCDers can get into a very toxic interpreter, but many of us, even if you don't have obsessive compulsive struggles, you can interpret your emotions in ways that are unhelpful, unfruitful, or in distorted pathways that are not leading you to actual steps of growth. So that's where helpful feedback can be important of what does this mean? Because many will say, I feel depressed. And they interpret that as, well, Christians should never be depressed. So that must mean I'm not a Christian. Wow. Do you see how that immediately takes somebody off the trail of healing and now they're lost in something they don't need to get lost in? Instead of recognizing, yeah, sure, Christians can go through depression. Let's not be afraid of it. Okay, so what kind of things are influencing your feelings of depression? Let's talk through that. Let's get a sense of understanding, okay? So then next level is beliefs, number 5, which is how does this influence what you believe about God, yourself, and the world around you? For example, if you have feelings of depression, how does this influence how you relate to God? Well, I feel like he doesn't listen. I feel like he doesn't care, right? How does it make you feel about yourself? Well, I just can't get it together. I just feel, I feel like I just beat myself up. Oh, okay, we see some self-hatred kind of pattern, some shame coming in, okay? What about the world around you? Well, no one cares, no one, right? So that starts to create an awareness of our belief system because these emotions influence how we believe. And people say, no, they don't. They do. But you have to come to awareness of that because we're human beings that feel, that have emotions. So then we start to go, okay, what do I want to move towards in my belief? Because some of that is going to be renewing my interpretation. Some of that is going to be making way for a new belief to take form and take shape, to lovingly welcome that. And 7, what can you do to embrace those renewed beliefs? Okay, so now that lets what we're feeling work through us, right? And some of that is, it's not on the screen here. Some of it involves the need of grieving, right? I need to be able to, it makes me sad. This makes me feel sad, okay? Can you feel that through? Let it wash through how it makes you feel, either through tears or just a sigh or just a sense of breathing through that. Or even in the conversation, just talk it out some more and let that become therapeutic for you as those words flow through and you're sharing what you've been through. Now, let me give you some unhealthy patterns. We've all done these. We've all fallen into them. One is venting, but not processing. Venting is just like letting out strong negative emotions with the intent of like just get the distress out, right? But it's not processing. Venting is just like an example would being you just go off in anger about something that's painful in your journey. Right? It's a short-term relief, but it's not long-term fruitfulness. It's not about working through the emotions. It's about getting just an instant relief. It's just like a quick ventilation and then the vent is closed again. It's not all bad to vent. We all have our venting moments, but venting can increase negative emotions and inflame them in the long term. And chronic venting will not let you get deeper. So if you find yourself constantly popping off in anger or just venting out negativity, you're actually participating in something that can become unloving to your journey, unhelpful. It's a sign, okay, I need to let compassion happen so I can get to the deeper emotions. A second thing that we do that's not helpful is repeating the story over and over again without fruitful observation and learning. It's very common that trauma can be on repeat over and over again. And we can repeat the story. Why? Because you get triggered a lot. And it's common that you can repeat it a lot. It's not all bad. And we need time to kind of figure our way through. But if we keep doing it without helpful observation, it can just become a cycle that never ends. And it becomes unproductive if 1, we're harsh and not compassionate. 2, we don't make any fruitful observations for learning, right? And 3, we don't allow ourselves to gain insight that allows for movement. So I'll say that again. Number 1, we're harsh, not compassionate. 2, we don't make fruitful observations. Okay. 3, we don't allow ourselves to gain insight for movement forward. Okay. We can get stuck in this pattern where then we start audience shopping for validation. I saw this a lot in my pastoral work, that people just kind of go around and share their story, keep sharing, because they just wanted somebody to fix them, and they have this deep need to be validated that was very rejection rooted. And so I knew in them coming to me, they'd already talked to 100 people. They keep going and keep going. So they repeat their story over and over and over again to multiple people. And this can be very, very unsafe for you, because we're looking for sympathy, we're looking for help, but you'll get a lot of extra opinions, you'll get even some agitation, you'll get people that don't know what to say, and it doesn't help you actually heal. which leads me to a third important one to keep in mind, is sharing with unsafe people. I have a lot of materials about identifying safe and unsafe people. We need people that have shown themselves to be safe listeners. And the truth is, we can frustrate our journey. We can really frustrate it by continuing to talk to people that have shown themselves to be unsafe. I even believe if you go to a therapist or a counselor or a pastor, that person needs to show that they are safe to be able to handle what you're going through. Sometimes we want to come in and just dump the whole truck. No, they need to show that they are capable of handling the issues of your heart with care. Now, if you find yourself realizing, I'm sharing with an unsafe person, you have to be careful about beating yourself up about it, because you walk away going, that's so stupid. Why'd I share that with them? And you need to celebrate, hey, you took a step. You gave it a try, because sharing stuff of the heart that's sensitive can be very frightening. So the fact that you shared, let it be something you celebrate and learn from it. Okay, next time I may not be as quick to just dump all that. Maybe I'll wait a little bit more, give it a little bit more time to find if the person's trustworthy. Another thing we can fall into is over-talking the painful story without listening. Sometimes I've had to gently interrupt or slow things down to go, okay, let's pause here. We don't have to get the whole story out here at once. Let's walk through step by step. I've had to realize in my own life that I walk away and I go, my goodness, I just over-talked the whole time and made it all about myself and didn't give a chance to listen and hear and get some good feedback. So it's an important thing to keep in mind. Number 5 is, I see this all the time, social media broadcasting of personal pain. I'm very cautious and I feel protective for people. This is why social media, one of the reasons why social media is hard for me and challenging for me, because I will see people I know and know their behind the scenes story processing out their trauma in public in very unhelpful and unfruitful ways. You're broadcasting your deepest pain to strangers, acquaintances, and unsafe people. You're exposing your most tender places without the important safety net of loving compassion. And so I encourage you, show respect for what you've been through and your journey, and have a sense of, okay, I want to honor my heart journey so that I don't just let it out everywhere I go. Okay. Now, in my research, for those of you who might be interested in this, I do want to make a disclaimer that this isn't, what I'm talking about here and talking about is not debriefing. What is debriefing? It's emotional support immediately after something that could be traumatic, a traumatic event, some type of crisis. It was a form of post-trauma intervention. When I started reading about trauma, researching it about 20 years ago, I noticed there was a practice of debriefing. It would happen immediately after as a way of help. And I found it interesting. Oh, maybe this is something that we need to be aware of right after something happens, kind of, jump in and do some debriefing to help. But mental health research has actually observed that debriefing can do more harm than good. And I'll give you 4 reasons why real quick. This kind of like something happened and jumping in and trying to do like traumatic work. 1, it can interfere with your natural ability to recover. Because for many people, just because something difficult happens, it doesn't mean it'll leave a traumatic imprint. And you just need some time for your body and your mind to naturally recover. 2, it can increase distress, because something that's distressful and now there's a spotlight put in on, you got to talk about it, tell me what happened, how does it make you feel? Number 3 is it can fuel catastrophic thinking. And OCDers can be very, very prone to this because we catastrophize things, right? And so that's important to be aware of catastrophic kind of interpretations. And 4, it may cause you to look for traumatic impact where it's actually not there. So it's not advised that right afterwards we go into like digging deep and excavating, because you may find yourself recovering. But love and care and nurture is available. It's not like you're just hanging on your own. It is helpful to have people around you like you're safe, you're all right. Allow your body, allow your mind to recalibrate. Another thing I want to bring out is in my journey of research and interacting with practitioners, there are many of those who talk about somatic healing or trauma healing out there. Many, not all, it's not a blanket statement over them all, but many of them can dismiss talking things out or talk therapy, saying it's just upper brain, it's top down, and it's ineffective. You need some bottom up, you need some somatic work, you need some exercises and things like that. While I can understand what they're trying to communicate in many ways, trauma healing is not just one thing in dismissal of everything else. I'm always cautious of anyone who's like, use this because all this other stuff is nonsense. Trauma healing doesn't have a silver bullet to it anyways. So it's important that we have an integrative perspective when it comes to trauma healing, meaning there's various contributing helps, there's layers, there's facets and stages to your healing. Somatic therapies has become an important aspect to trauma healing, where you learn to get in connection with your body in a compassionate way. I'm going to take an episode and talk about that in fruitful ways, especially as Christians, and try to weave through some of the confusion. But keep in mind, those who have seen effective results in trauma healing with people, they find that the physical somatic aspects working in combination with talk therapy, like, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Or just talking it out. The combination of the two working together can be very helpful. So I'm not for looking at one approach and dismissing others. I found that even in Christian circles, they would do that. They'd find some ministry approach and then they'd dismiss any other approach to kind of make theirs look better and elevate theirs. And I find that to be counterproductive. I find in some cases it's even dangerous how that happens. Okay, so let me take a step back for a moment and talk about the sacred spaces. The sacred spaces where healing conversations can happen. I'm a believer that so many places of conversation can be sacred moments and sacred experience. And the first one is speaking out your pain to God. I start here because God is the source of healing. He's the source of renewal. But it is also very challenging for trauma sufferers because our lens of God becomes damaged many times through our traumatic experiences. But getting to a place of learning who God is, learning that he is love, learning that he is a father, learning that we are his children, and learning to then express from that place of sonship is an incredibly life-changing, powerful experience that you were made as Christians to be able to have. Many times, traumatized people, they call out to God, but they do it in a way that leaves them disempowered, or they are in a place of desperation, self-pity, self-loathing, and despair. They call out from a place as though he's not listening, and they feel like they have to convince him. Many will say, well, God's not hearing, so why bother talking anyways? There can be a lot of resentment towards God, wondering, why didn't he protect me? Why didn't he prevent me? Why didn't he do something about this? Some of us want God to materialize in some way, to show himself physically and just fix us or fix our circumstances. Some wonder and question, why didn't God step in and prevent this whole thing from happening anyway? And these are things that people have been wrestling with for centuries. But what I do want to invite you into is trauma healing invites us to renew our lens of how we relate to God. And there's two resources I want to encourage for you. One is Experiencing God's Love as Your Father, which you can actually get that as a download today, a free download today that you can take and you can read. It's also available in other formats as well too, depending on how you learn best. I also recommend Exposing the Rejection Mindset, because this is level 2 now. Level 2 coming out of that father's love understanding. And so many of you, if you want a third step, people always ask me, where do I start? Well, start with Experiencing God's Love, Rejection Mindset. Now we're going to also deal with how you see yourself. And that's very important in trauma healing. God loves me and I love myself. Okay? So those are important to keep in mind. Now let's get into human interaction. And I want to talk about 2 powerful healing relationship locations that I want us to be aware of and to value and to cultivate. I believe these should be the 2 safest places on the planet. Number 1 is your home. Your home growing up. And now today, if you've left father and mother and you're married, have children, or wherever you live now as an adult, that your home should be where you live, should be an incredibly safe place. The problem for many of us is that home isn't a safe place. Very, very challenging. Many of your traumas actually come out of home, and there's so much breakdown in the home growing up, it's impacted us negatively. Secondly, and I don't say this second because some would say the body of Christ should be number one, family number two. It's fine. I'm just listing them in the order I felt to do. When we come to Christ, you are now baptized into the body of Christ. You're baptized into each other, Paul said in his writing. So we have a new father. We have new brothers and sisters. This was meant to be the arena where God shows himself. So the reality is the church of Jesus Christ should be the place that is incredibly safe for us to heal and grow through. However, many of your traumas have come out of interaction in the body of Christ. Many have come under spiritual abuse. Many have been under very condemning, legalistic, cult-like, or straight-up cult environments that have shredded your hearts. And you've been on a long journey of healing. No wonder we feel so alone. No wonder we feel we're spiraling in so many areas, because these two key places have been attacked and have been toxic influences in our journey. So let me go further in your relationship world and remind us that there's some other important avenues. Another one is close friendships and community. People you feel safe with to share with. They may not be able to give you trauma healing steps, but they can be great listeners. They can hug you. They can say, I'm praying for you. They can put their arm around you. They can take you out for a meal, have some coffee with you, and just give you companionship. Please understand, professional help is important, but sometimes we professionalize everything. Do you know what I mean when I say that? We professionalize everything. It's like everything we need help. We want a pro in our life, and we dismiss the beauty of everyday helpful interactions. Now, don't take these relationships for granted and dump on them all the time. Treasure them, steward them, respect them, and allow them to be places where you can recalibrate a bit. Second area is professional and therapeutic settings, where someone who's trained and is powerfully empathetic. This combination takes time to find. Someone who knows what they're talking about, but is incredibly empathetic. And the reason the empathetic, deeply empathetic ones can be challenging to find is a lot of them are burnt out and overbooked because everyone's going to them. It's just the truth. Because we're needing more and more people that can be empathetic, because empathetic living is hard work. That's a whole subject in itself. But also be open to divine interactions. Pray to God, but be open. People will cross your path. Sometimes you just be in line and you have a nice conversation with someone at the cash register, or someone gives you, a blessing, or says keep the change, or I don't know, something where you just have a kind interaction. Don't just walk through that without realizing sometimes the most divine things can be in the simplest of beautiful interactions. So let me go back for a second, because I just want to say this about your family. If you have good interactions with your family, mom, dad, sisters, brothers, uncles, aunts, cousins, niece, nephews, if you have it, embrace it. Embrace it. A large percentage of those who I interact and talk to, they don't have it. But if you have it, thank them, embrace it, respect it, guard it, honor it, because many don't have it. And it makes healing so difficult. Many have family that make their traumatic experiences worse and more burdensome. They're toxic in how they respond. They don't ask you how you're doing. They just talk about themselves. Many of you have grown up with narcissism. You've grown up with addicts. You've grown up with codependency. You've grown up with neglect. You've grown up with a lot of burdens where your family should be a safe place. Furthermore, many of you have actually experienced trauma right in your home. So the idea of a home base or safe place, it's difficult to even comprehend. On another note, I want you to keep in mind that family often doesn't know how to bring up trauma. They often don't know. They don't know how to be supportive. Some can be very quick fixed in their advice rather than a listening presence. I think that a healthy place in family, extended family, is being loving and understanding. While understanding, you may need to find support and help from some other avenues, and that's great. That's great because, again, healing is multifaceted. Now, I want you all to know, because I'm a big believer in encouraging people, you're going to have to leave father and mother. And many people struggle with leaving father and mother. So they get caught in the net of a lot of codependency and toxic patterns in the home. You have to realize, as you grow to be an adult, there's only so far you can go in your journey with your family. Your family can only go so far with you. And that's okay. And that's why the principle of leaving father and mother is important, because you have to move on with your journey and you have to embrace other avenues of support. You have to go on your overcoming journey. I just see over and over again where people are in their trauma healing journey, but then they go to their family, their extended family, for neediness and support, and it's like they get derailed because they have a toxic interaction and unhelpful. I think you have to learn how, the principle of don't give your pearls and throw them before swine, as the Bible talks about, the pearls being something of treasure. Don't just give it out to someone who's not going to respect and treasure them. Okay? So with that in mind, let me get to some barriers that can get in the way of our talk it out healing experience. The first one is shame, right at the front. Shame is more than just an emotion you have or just a feeling. It influences your belief about yourself, what you've been through, God, the world around you. So working through shame is going to be an obstacle. That's important to recognize. I talk a lot about that. I have that in past episodes. 3 areas of shame. One is shame about what happened. It'll drive you to keep things hidden and suppressed, not allowing vulnerability in the loving light of God's compassion and his healing grace. 2 is shame even about talking. Am I safe to talk about this? The idea of speaking about it can be very, very difficult. And many of you, don't you find too, sometimes you may share it and then you may get tearful and start crying. And what do? You apologize. Sorry, like we're saying sorry for something we should actually be able to do. Or here's another aspect of shame, the post-conversation shame spiral. Feeling stupid for bringing it up, for sharing it with someone. Maybe you didn't get good validation or it didn't give you the results you were hoping for. It's okay. You took a step. Celebrate that you took a step and allow yourself to learn from it. Okay, I shared, it didn't go well. What could I learn for next time? That often becomes a painful spiral that can come about after trying to have a conversation. Many times we have a bad experience and we're like, forget it. I'm never sharing again. Yeah, don't let it keep you from sometime down the road trying again. Second is fear, the fear factor. And it's always wanting to wrap its tentacles around those vulnerable places of your heart. Let me get to the key fear, because there's fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment, fear of what people think, fear of people seeing us differently from now on. But the bottom line, if you want to drill right to the bottom, it's abandonment. It's the fear of abandonment. Our greatest fear is that we will be rejected, alone, without any connection at all. But the truth is, if we keep letting the fear win, what we've been through will continue to have power over us. Let me say that again. If we keep letting the fear win, what we went through will continue to have power over us. So the key to facing the fear and shame is to take small steps, one at a time, moving towards interactions. Celebrate taking the small steps, even if they don't work out perfectly, okay? Because it takes time for you to build your confidence of working through shame and working through the fear factor. Another aspect I'll mention briefly is past negative experiences. It's like you had a bad conversation. It's like, forget it. And it just wants to keep playing over and over and over again to prevent you from taking a step. And another thing that gets in the way is feeling that we need to get the whole story out and feel completely understood. And what this did for me is First of all, it made me feel overwhelming to talk. I don't have the energy to get this whole thing out because I felt I had to get the whole story out. And then I would have this like nervous energy of trying to get everything out that I needed to say in order to be able to have fruitful steps forward. And I realized I don't have to do that. So what we're talking about here is different avenues of helpful conversations. And I want to encourage you to plug into these three. Talking with a safe person, that they have empathy, they ask good questions, they don't just give you advice. And 2 is a trained person, a professional or a counselor, a therapist, or a pastor with trauma training, where they understand how trauma works and the complexities of recovery. And also an insightful person, wise people that know how to listen and speak, and they measure their words carefully in a good way, not in a fearful way, but they have discernment and a sense of emotional intelligence, and they can give you helpful feedback along your journey and along the way. Okay, so let me give you some benefits that will happen when you learn how to talk it out. This is some transformative fruit. One is that hopefully you'll start growing in self-compassion. You meet with somebody, they give you some feedback. Hey, you're being hard on yourself. You start to learn to be compassionate as you talk, that you grow in that as you hear yourself share your story, that you have a more compassionate response to it more and more, that you get the ability to talk about what you're feeling and learn to do that. Because that's a major issue. It's a major issue I run into where people actually don't know how to talk what they're feeling. Learn to listen, to get helpful feedback, to be an active listener, to take in things effectively, to get some life-changing insight. Like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. When you share your journey with someone who's effective, then you may get like one takeaway. And that's great because that's all we can handle, really. But it also helps us break through our barriers of shame, break through our barriers of fear each time we put our foot and stomp on shame and fear one more time each time that we take a step. So I'm going to leave you with some tips, okay? Some practical steps that you can take. The first, I always say this, is the test the waters approach. Whether you're talking to someone professionally or casually or even in business and at work, people have to show that they are safe. So start with smaller, less vulnerable shares. Maybe you talk about a public event or something that everybody's aware of that, has some vulnerabilities to it. If you see the person's constantly going off about other people in toxic, shaming way, they may not be the safest person to interact. It's okay to give relationships time to develop trust. Okay, 2, in talking it out, you need to develop your emotional vocabulary. Now, in studies that have been done, they found that most people only know 3 words when it comes to emotions. Sad, happy, and angry. Sappy. Maybe sappy's an emotion. I'm feeling sappy today. Sad, happy, and angry. Now, those are the only 3 words people knew. You got to learn to branch out with more vocabulary to this. And I've had to do this a lot with people. Expand beyond just like good, bad, fine. Get to more specific. Get to as specific of a word as you can. It's hard to heal something that you can't name. It's hard to heal something you can't name. But if you can name it, you can begin the work of processing through it. Another step I want to encourage you in is focus on being compassionate to yourself first before trying to fix yourself. Don't focus on the fixing. Focus on lovingly responding to everything you're going through, especially when you're triggered, especially when emotions rise up. See everything through the lens of compassionate grace. 4 is remain open to renewed interpretations of your thoughts and emotions. That's been very helpful for me. I put it out there. Give me your feedback to allow someone to challenge how you interpret things. As Christians too, sometimes we get into, well, God did this and God told me to do this. And I feel like the Lord, we throw that out so much that it doesn't give people room to challenge it. Cause it's like, well, if God said it, don't make it so ironclad. Allow trusted voices to speak into your how you interpret what you're feeling and interpret where you are and what you're going through. And lastly, and I think this is so important, be a powerful person for others in conversation. I found over and over again, my life has been echoing the narrative of be for others what I wish that I had received. Be for others what I didn't have. Be for others what I didn't experience in my life. It doesn't mean I can do that for everybody, but I can do that one at a time for those that cross my path. So today, which of these insights was helpful for you in your journey? What's your takeaway? Give me one takeaway. Would you put it in the comment section or write to me? Let me know what was one takeaway that was helpful. Just remember, talking it out isn't just about getting things off your chest. It's about actively participating in your healing. And when we can find safe, empowering places, trusted voices to help us process our emotions, we're not just getting by when it comes to trauma. We're moving through it more effectively. And I want you to know that your healing matters, not only to God, not only to you, but to those that you interact with, because we need more people who've been through stuff, are working through stuff, and are open-hearted to blessing others with what they have learned. And so, Father, I just pray right now that you provide us with opportunities to be heard, for opportunities for us to hear others. That you'd provide a safe place, trusted voices, and that when the moment arises, the courage to speak what we're needing to work through, and for love to be there so we can walk through greater healing and wholeness in our journey. And I thank you for this. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. If you'd like to support these videos, you can click that donate button at markdejesus.com. But do me a favor, if this was helpful, click that like and subscribe button. That helps us out a whole lot. And then you can also go over to our website where I have all kinds of resources and materials that can be a help for your healing and freedom journey. markdejesus.com. Laud well and the creek don't rise. This is your brother from another mother saying, I'll be back with more insights for your healing and freedom journey. But in the meantime, I'm out.